Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Telescope Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Everyone in this place, if you could do a handstand, I want to see your feet up in the air right now. Wave them around.
Hello. Welcome to the Telescope Podcast, the show where we look at geek culture through the spyglass of faith. Matthew Seipel Anderson here, so excited to be bringing you an episode about Star Wars. We're going to talk about the trailer for Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. And speaking of Skywalker, or Walker, our feet, I'm talking to you right now through a sock because I sat down to do a show. I've got little baby Rosalie on my lap here. I'm all ready to go, and I realized that someone pulled the little foam shield, which is my pop protector, off of my microphone. Some little gremlin in my house, one of my children, has hijacked my pop screen. And so I reached down, grabbed the sock off my foot, not even a clean sock because I was all hunkered down, ready to go. I throw that baby on the microphone and I'm ready to rock. So here I am, live from the sock mic, just for you. Well, I don't know what else is going on. Avengers reviews are looking good. That was to be expected. Always so much to talk about. It's hard to decide, what to talk about for these shows. So, you know what? Let's just do a little science and then hop right into our featured content. Well, scientists are pumped because we got our first actual picture of a black hole recently. And you might think, why does anyone care what a black hole looks like? Isn't it just black? Isn't it basically invisible? Well, yes. But there's a long-standing mystery in science. Physics seems to operate in one way in the universe at large, but on the quantum level, or the quantum realm, and yes, that's not just something that Marvel made up for Ant-Man, in the quantum realm, physics seems to play by different rules. And scientists have been looking for this grand unifying theory between the physics that we experience, with gravity and general relativity, and the quantum realm. They want to bridge them all together. And so they're very excited because they're looking at these photos of black holes, and they're using these to make measurements and to test Einstein's theory of relativity to see if it breaks down under the extreme conditions found inside a black hole. So, very exciting stuff. This story comes from sciencemag.org, and there's tons of places that are carrying stories about the black hole photo, but I'm just going to read a little bit. 2 years ago, an international collaboration known as the Event Horizon Telescope corralled time on 8 different radio telescopes around the world to try and image the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, known as Sagittarius A, and at the center of a nearby galaxy called M87. Their 5 nights of observing produced, get this, 4 petabytes of data. If that amount of data was music stored as MP3s, it would take 8,000 years to play. The team has spent the past 2 years correlating, collaborating, and interpreting the data, and they are now preparing to show us the results. So, very, very exciting stuff. You can see those photos online. The early verdict that I read about seems to show that general relativity holds up, which is very, very exciting. Has great implications for actually philosophy, belief in God, belief in a beginning of the universe. So, but today is not a day to go into all that. We will continue that story at a later time. Well, today's story is all about the trailer that recently dropped for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Now, just my initial reaction to this was absolute joy, excitement, relief, all kinds of things. But before I get into my own thoughts, I want to share a little about an interview that I read on StarWarsNewsNet.com with J.J. Abrams. And he talked about his journey going back to Star Wars. And this interview got me even more excited. And I'll explain. So he knew that there was no script for this movie. In fact, I think they've gone through at least one other guy who was going to direct it. So anyway, there's no script. And his story that he began with Episode 7 had been taken in a different direction than he intended originally. And he knew that there was a release date set, meaning there would be tremendous pressure to deliver a movie on time. And add to that the pressure from the fans to deliver a satisfying conclusion to the Skywalker saga. And J.J. Abrams looked at all this stuff, and he actually said no. But thankfully, he said that his wife brought him around and assured him that the family could handle the turbulence of Star Wars one more time, and she just encouraged him that, hey, don't you want to finish this thing that you started? And so she actually talked him back into it. And so one of the first things he did is he enlisted the help of a co-writer because he knew the clock was ticking, and there was just so many pieces that needed to be set in motion, but they couldn't be without a script. I mean, you think about hiring crews and people to build sets and finding scouting locations and not even to mention actors. I mean, all the characters you're going to need to develop for this thing. So anyway, he reached out to a guy named Chris Terrio. I hope I pronounced his name right. Anyway, he was thrilled, and he came on as a co-writer, and JJ said that the two of them really, really agonized and left no stone unturned as they worked through the different plot threads from the first 8 films. And when he described the final product, I was just so struck by the genuine glow on his face as he described this movie. And he said that it ties together the prequels, the originals, and the new films. And just seeing his reaction, his face, his tone of voice, it really made me a believer that this new movie is going to deliver the goods. And, and I had seen the trailer, so from my excitement with the trailer, combined with seeing JJ's just very genuine look of pride in this movie, it just made me so pumped. So, when I heard his description of the process, it also reminded me of what George Lucas went through when he made the first Star Wars. There's a great documentary about that, and I don't know what it's called. My mother-in-law has it in DVD box set. It's DVD box set of the original trilogy, and it has this 4th disc that's like a documentary about the process of creating Star Wars. And there were so many issues. There were money issues. There were deadline issues. The studio people didn't believe in him, except for just like 1 or 2 of them who were advocating for him. And the cast even admitted, when we made this, we didn't even take this movie seriously. We thought it was just this goofball thing. And then, of course, it blows up. But George Lucas went through just this terrible time. He at one point checked himself into the hospital because of heart palpitations because of all the stress. He personally, along with I think one other guy, re-edited the movie himself because the people from the studio were old school, and their version of the movie was slow moving like an old Western. Older movies they just have a slow pace. And George Lucas is famous for always saying, at the end of a take when he's filming, saying, that's great, but let's try it again, faster and more intense. So he's one of these groundbreaking guys who was bringing filmmaking to a new place. And he was under so much stress. But oftentimes, when it comes to the creative process, and any endeavor, really, oftentimes it's our limitations and it's the pressure that brings out greatness. And I know that about the original film, and when I hear the story of J.J. Abrams saying, I was very stressed, we had this deadline, I was recruiting help, it just excites me because that kind of environment, that kind of pressure can oftentimes just bring out something amazing. And I really hope that's the case. And maybe my expectations are too high already, but I am excited if I haven't made that clear already. Well, let's move on. I want to give some of my thoughts on the trailer. So the trailer was clearly designed to make us very curious. And of course, Lucas knows how this works. Every time they release something, there's this whole truckload of bloggers and vloggers and YouTubers and people who dissect this stuff, to the nth degree. And it's this whole cottage industry that's sprung up. So this trailer is designed to make us curious. It's full of riddles, full of questions. And so some of them are in the opening scene, there's Rey running, and you hear Luke Skywalker voicing, over, and and she does this crazy, obvious, like, force flip over a TIE fighter. So my first question is it an actual battle? Is she being attacked, or is that some kind of training sequence that was suggested by one person online? I don't know. You see Kylo Ren's helmet being put back together, but if you look closely, the hands that are doing the like soldering are these super hairy hands. Is it Chewbacca? What's going on there? Who's rebuilding Kylo Ren's helmet and why? Hey, Lando's in the trailer. That's cool. What's Lando been up to all these years? Very curious to know what's going on with our old buddy Lando. How much time has passed between the episodes? Obviously, some significant time has passed, but how much? How much of Mark Hamill will we see? How much Luke Skywalker? Are we going to see him as a Force ghost or just hear his voice? I don't know. Good question. That brings me to another question. The Rise of Skywalker. Interesting title choice. What does that mean? So many different ways that could go. That makes me wonder, did we learn the full story of Rey's origin in The Last Jedi? Or did we get the story, quote, from a certain point of view? Just like Luke got the story of his father from Obi-Wan from a certain point of view, So it could be some tweaking the direction from the last one by giving Rey, by including Rey into the Skywalker lineage. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? Or is it just that Luke has finally passed on what he's learned, and so the rise of a new Jedi is kind of like the rise of Skywalker? Who knows? It could go in 100 different directions. I think the biggest riddle of all came at the end. Luke Skywalker's narrating, like I said, and he has this line, "No one has ever truly gone," which is followed by the unmistakable, blood-chilling laugh of Emperor Palpatine. So I just have to dive into this and throw out some ideas. So, is Palpatine alive? I really hope not. He better not be, because that would just be like bad fan fiction. I'm sorry, that would be terrible. But how will he be involved? Because it's clear he will be. We hear his laugh, unmistakable, and then the actor who played him, Ian, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Ian McDermott or something like that. Anyway, he was present for the Episode 9 panel at Star Wars Celebration. So he's definitely going to play a role. That's without question. So, number one, I think Palpatine had many plots, traps, and schemes, and his involvement could simply be something he set in motion previously, before his demise, and maybe that plot or scheme or thing is going to come back to haunt us in the current episode. That could be a simple explanation. Another one could be just flashbacks. In The Last Jedi, we got flashbacks of Luke at his Jedi temple with Kylo Ren. So perhaps there's going to be some flashbacks to Palpatine. That could be the case. Another thing that I think would be very cool, and I would definitely be all on board with, is there could be some old holographic messages, or perhaps even a Sith holocron discovered by our new characters. So holocrons, I'm not super deep into the Star Wars world like some of the YouTubers are, but can't even say YouTuber. Anyway, but holocrons are basically these like cubes, or oftentimes they're in the shape of a like a triangle, like a 3D triangle. I guess that's called a pyramid. Anyway, and they contain these interactive holographic programs, I guess you'd say, of these Sith Lords. And if you tap into the holocron, you get the image of the Sith Lord, and the Sith Lord is passing on all their dark side knowledge. And I suppose because with the dark side users, ever since Darth Bane, they've had what's called the rule of two, where there's always just a master and an apprentice. And so there's always the chance that both will be killed, and that they're not going to be able to pass on their knowledge to continue the tradition. And so, anyway, it's common for these Sith Lords to create these holocrons and record their knowledge. So, interesting. And I think it would be very cool if they found a holocron of Darth Sidious, and they could have him involved in the film that way via a holocron that he created. And lastly, he could show up as a Force ghost. Now, in the prequels, Sidious, that'd be Darth Sidious, a.k.a. the Emperor, told Anakin, before he fell to the dark side, a story of a Sith Lord that discovered the secret to reversing death, and that was Sidious's master, whose name was Darth Plagueis. So it's possible that this knowledge that has so far only belonged to the Jedi to survive death and not just dissolve into the Force, but become an eternal Force being, like a Force ghost. Maybe that's now been discovered by the dark side, and maybe Darth Sidious will return as a haunting, spooky Force ghost, which actually would be pretty cool. I could flow with that. You know, it's we're seeing an expansion of Force abilities and things in these movies, so it could be cool. There could be a very cool, spooky dark side Force ghost sequence that would be really, really interesting. You know, if you get super nerdy, there's even a Darth Vader comic book that came out recently where Darth Vader finds this ancient Sith helmet that this ancient Sith Lord has discovered how to attach his spirit to the helmet, and then the spirit has these interactions with Vader and even possesses somebody. I really hope they don't go there, because in a comic book that's kind of cool, but I don't know, I think it's just going to be too far out, especially for casual fans. I don't think people are going to like that. I think it would just seem like, okay, you're trying too hard to bring back Palpatine, you know, like the last movie bombed, so you're just bringing back more stuff from the original episodes to try to save this new trilogy that's been plagued by criticism. So I really hope they don't go there. But anyway, I think it's going to be cool. I really have faith that J.J. Abrams and company have done good things. Oh, I got a coughing baby here. You guys are also getting the frontline picture of parenting here. All right, last thing I want to talk about, or a couple things, I guess, is the trailer and the poster for Episode 9 revealed that J.J. Abrams is going to use a number of ideas that he had way back when he was working on Episode 7. There's been some concept art that's made its way to the internet of Rey exploring the submerged ruins of the second Death Star. That would be the Death Star from Return of the Jedi that, I guess, crashed or partially crashed on one of the moons of Endor, where the Ewoks are. Or maybe it's a different moon that has life but no Ewoks. I don't know. Ewoks are kind of loved and hated, sort of like Jar Jar Binks. But anyway, in the trailer, we see this huge hunk of the old Death Star, and it's lying in a large body of water, and we see our heroes approaching it. So we're probably going to get that idea brought to the big screen. That's really cool. I'm personally very excited. I think that could be where we get our spooky Force ghost sequence, or maybe where we discover our holocron or holographic image of Darth Sidious, and that could be how he plays into the film. That would work really well in my mind. Another thing is that J.J. Abrams had this concept of the Knights of Ren, and you saw the Knights of Ren briefly in Rey's Force Vision in Episode 7, and even there's a line where Snoke said, refers to Kylo Ren as Master of the Knights of Ren. So Ren's not a name, it's a title. So who are the Knights of Ren? Now, apparently Rian Johnson didn't care, because he didn't really include them at all in Episode 8. But J.J. Abrams, it appears, is going to bring in the Knights of Ren because they are on the poster. If you go search for the poster, you can see them, and they look all gnarly and black. And so who are they? And my theory, and I think this is a pretty commonly held theory, is that during his time at the Jedi Academy, when Kylo Ren was beginning to explore the dark side, he's like this model student, top of the class, most powerful Jedi in Jedi school, the pride of Luke Skywalker, apple of his eye, but secretly he has this double life. He's learning the dark side. He's got a rebellious streak, and he begins to gather a little group of followers among his classmates who are, rebellious, exploring the dark side. And so when it all goes down at the Jedi Temple, I'm guessing those students leave with Kylo Ren, and Luke even says that in Episode 8. I guess this would probably be the only reference to the Knights of Ren, if this is where they go with it, that Kylo and a small group of students destroy the Jedi Temple. And so I'm guessing that those disciples of his are the Knights of Ren. And so it's going to be cool to see them. I have a theory that Kylo Ren wants to bring the dark side users back to a pre-Darth Bane paradigm. And what does that mean? Well, Darth Bane was the Sith Lord way back in the day, and he lived during a time when there were many, many Jedi users, many masters, many apprentices, apprentici. I don't know how you make apprentice plural. Anyway, and at that time, the biggest problem that the dark side users had was they would always double-cross each other. They were always jockeying for power amongst themselves, and that made them vulnerable. You know, they were divided, whereas the light side users, I don't know if they were Jedi at that time, but the light side users were united. And so Darth Bane had this idea that he needed to annihilate all the other dark side users and consolidate power, and that there should only ever be one master and one apprentice. So he started what's called the Rule of Two, and that's how the dark side has been operating ever since. Under the new canon, like in this new era of Disney-owned Star Wars, we get the Rebels cartoon, and in the Rebels cartoon, they have these characters called Inquisitors, which are dark side users that are not really Sith. And so basically they're like these people who are Force sensitive, love the dark side, have some fighting skills, some ability with the Force, they can move objects and stuff, but they don't know the real deep stuff, probably like, the Force lightning and the mind control, and, they're not super powerful, and there's even a lot of other deep, kind of sorcery, magic-y kind of stuff with the Force. They don't call it magic, but that's kind of what it is, space wizardry. So they're not as deep, and they're not given the history of the Sith and all this stuff. So those characters are basically like Darth Vader's little private squad of Jedi hunters. And so you can see that under this new canon, we're kind of getting away from the Rule of Two, like maybe Palpatine's like, I'm the most amazing master ever, I can have more dark side users. I don't know. And so my theory is that Kylo Ren is picking up on this thread, and that he has got his own little crew under him. And I'll be curious to see if Kylo Ren chooses another apprentice or not. Or maybe he's going to continue to try to pursue Rey as an apprentice. I don't know. Well, anyway, I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are on the trailer for Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Cannot wait till December. It's going to be great fun.
Bring forth the telescope!
Well, this is the show where we look at geek culture through the spyglass of faith. And in John 14, verse 15, Jesus says, If you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another helper to be with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him or knows him. You know him, for he dwells with you and will be in you. I will not leave you as orphans, I will come to you. Yet a little while, and the world will see me no more. But you will see me. Because I live, you will also live. In that day you will know that I am in the Father, and you in me, and I in you. Whoever has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him. Very, very interesting words from Jesus here. And he's speaking about after he rises from the dead, ascends to the Father, he's going to send the Holy Spirit. And when I see Star Wars and I see this idea of Force ghosts, right, it just reminds me of the Holy Spirit. Okay, that might be a little cheesy. Jesus is saying, you know what, I'm going to be gone, but I'm not going to be gone because now the Spirit is going to be with you. And because the Spirit's with you, I'm with you. And I get really excited because when I see this new Star Wars trailer, one of the things that I've hoped for is I've hoped for Rey to find that sense of belonging, that sense of love, that person to wrap their arms around her and to train her and to care about her and to see her develop into her full potential. And to hear the voice of Luke Skywalker saying, you're ready, you've been trained. All these years of Jedi knowledge is now in you, and now this is your you're fighting, and we're sending you out. You can do this. We believe in you, basically. It just lifts my spirit. It's so encouraging because it resonates, for me, it resonates in the reality of, even though Jesus isn't here personally, the Spirit is with every believer, everyone who loves God and who's following Him, believes in Jesus Christ. The Holy Spirit is with us, and the Holy Spirit is helping us, guiding us, revealing God's love. Jesus said that the one who loves God, the Spirit will manifest God to them. That's a promise that we can have an experience of who God is as we follow Him, and the Holy Spirit helps us and reveals things to us in the Spirit. It's really an amazing thing, and it's one of the greatest promises that we have in God, because He's a living God. He's not dead. He is alive. And I'm so excited about the new Star Wars movie because we get Luke Skywalker alive, and maybe a restored Luke Skywalker that, as a Force ghost, will impart things to Rey and see her come to her full potential, and it's really, really exciting. So, hey, thanks for listening to today's show. I've really enjoyed making it, as always, and Rosalie's going to cry a little bit and send us off, maybe? No? All right, well, hey, take care, and until next time, bye-bye.
What's up, everybody? Everyone in this place, if you can do a handstand, I want to see your feet up in the air right now.